Greetings and salutations. At one point, you keep wondering where you should start at something or how you should start at something, or like at a blank page, and sometimes the only issue is you just start. So I'm going to start right here. It's been a while since I've done any kind of video specifically like this, and I figured instead of just diving into the drawing, I'm going to do a little bit of navel gazing into the past. So about 2017, I started with this sketchbook. Obviously, it's shown its years. And I started with a page, and I was going to do a comic book page a day. I'd get off of work because I worked overnights, and I would have a cup of morning coffee, and I would sit down and do a comic book page. What kind of story was I going to write? Well, I have no idea. I never really thought about it. I just drew this panel, the one right here. Well, what are you going to do then? Well, I don't know. We'll just kind of see where we're going to go, see what the ink does. Using a Sharpie marker. Simple, kind of crude. I had an idea of something surrealistic or something weird. And then I drew in this fellow in what obviously appears to be a crude spacesuit with a pair of weird sci-fi binoculars. And then page 2, I just came up with this random monster. Simple, crude, we're not really forming any kind of plan, we're just kind of going with it. How can it see us? It has no eyes. That was how these... What? No, this can't be. It wasn't made like this. It has evolved somehow. From what? Its mass? These were not this big before. Wonder what caused the thing to mutate. Its mass. Those things are all those teeth? And again, I have no formulaic plan, no outline. A lot of times my stories work out that way. I just sit down and start writing. And it's kind of an interesting thing because I don't really feel that I've ever suffered from any kind of writer's block. If you don't know, you just do it. Whether it works or not. And again, just using two kinds of Sharpies. They have these little fine point Sharpies and then the regular kind of Sharpie here for the heavier lines. And prior to this, it's been since art school that I drew comics. I kind of drifted away from comic book because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw comics. And had absolutely no understanding of how the whole practice of comics. This is back in the 90s. You didn't have the internet to show you anything and everything you could possibly know about the making of comics. And I'm certain there were other ways of finding out, but that was just how it was. So I drifted away from drawing comics and just doing my own thing, which was essentially just drifting from job to job. Close up to the teeth, the monster lifting up something to its mouth. The original idea here was that each one of these teeth had teeth as well. So there was the big huge monster, and then the monster had little monsters living inside its head. And I might use this idea because this story does evolve into something significant. I did have an idea of having the teeth themselves to be individual monsters. And there's the idea that if you pulled one of the teeth, the tooth would evolve into a kind of a creature. It's kind of like if, I grew up in Oregon, so you'd have these lizards and you'd, pop off its tail and the tail would grow back. But, what if the tail grew into another lizard? And then you'd pop off the tail of the lizard, and the tail would grow, and the tail would grow into another lizard, and then the lizard would grow another tail, and on and on and on. Be an interesting horror story, actually. Be kind of cool. Anyway, and the other thing, because for years I've been drawing like surrealistic stuff, so it wasn't like hardcore based on any kind of reality. So I had drifted away from the discipline of drawing realistic things, and so I was kind of relearning just basics in drawing. This screwed up way his face is. The hands are all messed up. I mean, again, I'm just kind of putting down the idea what's going on here. And you notice that the monster is evolving as the design gets kind of clarified and fleshed out. You insist on investigating where you had no business to do so. What would you gain knowing what no one else cared to know? Besides the fact it was a capital crime, there was a reason the subject of Earth and all things related to the dead planet, this dead planet, why it was banned. The creature we see here is a clear indication to that reason. I just wanted the truth. You brought me here to take the technology which created this monster. My handwriting's horrible. I just wanted the truth. You brought me here to take the technology which created this monster. So this is here. You'll notice a lot more clarification in the detail here. This is with a micron. There's some bits and pieces here with the Sharpie, but I'd started to evolve away from the Sharpie and into the finer use of the micron pen. And the characters get a little bit more clarification. It is quite a thing, isn't it? We can't expose where we gain this technology. We can't profit from all of this effort if we are fugitives. A few would pay for this technology, but not enough. It is never enough. But to be the ones who brought these monsters to the cosmos, to put their mass and energy to our use, that might be enough for us to rule whatever and wherever we wish. Isn't that always the thing? Power. And this is where we're starting to get into the idea of how to break up the panels in the comic book. See, I never got into the superhero thing growing up. A lot of times because we were freaking, a lot of people talk about being poor, but yeah, it was pretty rough. And so I couldn't afford to go, and so you have this character here, he's got this comic book, and there's a crossover to you. Well, you wanted to continue the story, you had to go and buy these comic books, and you had to go buy these comic books, and all over the place. So all these crossovers, and it was just not something I could ever afford. So I didn't get connected to the superhero thing. So I went with what was available, and sometimes it was just old cheap Japanese sci-fi comics. One of the things that always annoyed me was the square, 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 square. And there didn't seem that there was much engagement and creativity in how the panels were built. And I think it was It was Bill Watterson with the Calvin and Hobbes comic books, or not comic books, the comic strips, the Sunday comic strips, where he would really start to get into the layout of how the panels were put into place and treating the panels themselves as part of the composition. You know, here's a panel, and then here's a section of the creature's arm taken away and treated as a panel, and then here's another section of the character, the creature, turned into a panel, which kind of makes the creature itself with a foreground and background as a panel of its own. And again, this is just kind of relearning how to draw reasonably realistic proportions and characters and people, because I'd spent years and years drawing surrealistic crap. You know, you pull anything out of a hat, and if it was surrealistic, it didn't have to be realistic. And so with comic books, especially with science fiction, there's some kind of expectation on making something look at least a pretense of reality. And so a lot of this is just trying to relearn how to draw realistically. So this kind of gets confusing. And again, it's a sketchbook. There's this as the story evolves, there's better organization in the panels. So you have one of the patriarchs, the masters, getting confronted by the monster, and you hear a thumb, and then I don't know what I was thinking here. But he gets attacked by the monster. And yeah. Yeah, there should be like a few pages in between here. They're not taken out, I just didn't add them. Again, the story was evolving. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring that up with this kind of thing. Just a little bit. To put a video down that's not some stupid short. And this is actually what this is right here. So this stems from this little experiment. So, anyway. That's it for now. So, yeah. We'll go into a few more of the pages, and we'll start getting into actually what the story's all about. So there.